Cool. We're live. Hello, everyone. Um, Nobody's joined the live stream yet, but when this gets uploaded afterwards, they're gonna do it. So great to be here today in this edition. We are with my co-host Paloma. Super excited to be chatting about the dangers of AI for privacy and security, and all things privacy and security, really. But I think the AI topic is pretty interesting to have as headline today, and an amazing lineup to talk about it. Um, we're gonna be chatting with Rosco from Revoke, Pavel from Tor Project, Lefteris from Rotki, and Loring from Shutter. So amazing lineup today to talk about this topic. As many of you know, Epoch 12 has started, so you can support these amazing projects if you go to Octant.app and vote for them there. This time around, we've changed a few things. You've probably noticed it in the UI, but we also have a bunch of new amazing updates. For example, you no longer need to lock GLM for a longer period of time in order to participate. You can do a direct ETH donation. The way it works so that it balances out with the people who have it locked is that you, with that ETH that you contribute, you burn half of what you want to allocate. Well, you buy GLM and burn half of, sorry, you, with half of that, you buy GLM and that gets burned. And with the rest, that is your voting power. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's been a feature that's been requested for a long time, so I'm super excited to see that. And if you go to Octant app, you will see all the new amazing features that we have. So yeah, without further ado, I see a bunch of people have joined by now, so super excited. Thank you all for joining. Welcome to this Epoch 12 live stream. Again, we'll be talking about the dangers of AI for privacy and security, so stick around. And I have with me Paloma, who will be my co-host today. Hi, Paloma. How are you doing?
Hi, Nico. I'm doing fine. I'm excited for like even with the issues with Twitter and everything. I'm really excited for this live stream, particularly because I love Octant, but also because the topic is really interesting and the projects are also really interesting.
Yeah, amazing. I'm also super excited. And I think a lot of people, as you say, despite Twitter being down, are flocking to our live stream. So that's amazing to hear and see. Paloma, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a quick intro before we bring our guests up.
Yeah, sure. So I like to say I'm just a girl, but I'm a little bit more than just a girl. I I've done many things, worn many hats, but I used to do a lot of community building, developer community growth in the space. And then more recently, I do more of content in different formats. And I was actually a part of the Octant Creator Program last year, which was really good. And yeah, that's as brief an intro that I can give. And I will pass it back to you, Nico.
Sweet. Thank you, Paloma. Super excited to have this conversation with you as my co-host. And without further ado, let me bring up our amazing guests here. We have Rosco from Revoke.cash. We have Pavel from Tor Project, Lefteris from Rotki, and Loring from Shutter. What a lineup today. Hello, guys. How's it going?
Doing well.
Yeah,
Sweet.
fantastic. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank
nice
you
to be
guys for
here.
coming, and mostly for all the work that you do. I think it's incredible, and keen to learn even more about it and about how you think about this topic today. And let's start. Bless you, sir.
Sorry.
Let's start with a quick round of intros about yourselves and the projects. As you know, for the audience there, you can vote for these projects on Octant app. check it out, and I'm sure they're gonna convince you to vote for them today. So stick around to hear all they have to say. Rosco, let's start with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. So I'm Rosco, the creator of Revoke.cash, which is a platform for managing your token approvals, which is a pretty core part of staying safe in crypto. Whenever you're using crypto apps, you're always having to give them access to your tokens or to your NFTs, which is like an essential part of the functioning of these apps. But in many cases, those access stays for months or years after you've stopped using the apps, which is a security risk, as we're seeing more and more the past couple of months. So yeah, excited to talk about that here and help people stay safe.
Cool, thank you, Rosco. Pavel, let's go over with you.
Yeah, so we are the Tor Project. We basically have two products that most people are familiar with: the Tor browser that shields you from tracking and surveillance, and then the Tor network that helps you obfuscate your identity and your location, and really has become kind of the engine for a lot of privacy-preserving apps that have built on top of Tor, including some financial apps. I mean, little known fact is that 2/3 of all Bitcoin nodes are utilizing Onion services, but also we're seeing more and more wallets now opting for Tor integration. So we are basically the privacy layer underpinning entire ecosystems, and that's the work that we're proud of and continuing to do because we believe that people have a right to use the internet with as much privacy and security as possible.
Applause to that. Yeah, Loring, that's awesome. We all love privacy here, I believe. Lefteris, one of the privacy lovers, I guess, as well. Can you tell us about yourself and Rotki as well?
Yeah. So hello everybody. My name is Lefteris. I'm the founder of Rotki, which is essentially a privacy-based portfolio accounting and tracking tool. The whole reason of existence for Rotki is privacy. It's a way to do your accounting in crypto or your portfolio tracking, but keeping all of your data locally so that it doesn't leak into a cloud server or get hacked when it's put in a server or have your data sold, as unfortunately has happened with multiple of these online accounting tools. So yeah, I guess that's the TLDR of what Rotki is.
Sweet. Thank you, Lefteris. What about you, Loring?
Well, if Lefteris is a privacy lover, I would like to think of myself as a privacy fighter, constantly fighting for privacy. It's my corny joke of the day. I'm Loring. I'm here with Shutter, and we are leading the charge to encrypt the public mempool on Ethereum mainnet. And basically, right now, when users on Ethereum make a transaction, they send it to the public mempool in an unencrypted state. And as a result, everyone can see it. And there are actors like toxic MEV bots, which see your transaction and manipulate it. And if they manipulate it in order to basically extract value from it, stealing your money, giving you a worse price, that's called toxic MEV. And if they manipulate it in a way where it is delayed from inclusion on the chain and potentially even denied inclusion on the chain, that's real-time censorship. And so encrypting the public mempool basically allows Ethereum users to encrypt their transaction before sending it to the public mempool. Everyone can still see that there's a transaction there, but they can't see the contents of the transaction. And because they don't know the contents of the transaction, they can't manipulate it. So they can't extract toxic MEV, they can't engage in real-time censorship. And then after the block builder has ordered that transaction in the block, the contents are decrypted and it's put on chain and processed as normal. And so we have been working with a wide range of Ethereum transaction supply chain actors and ecosystem actors to implement an EIP to encrypt the public mempool. And we're hoping to do that in the upcoming iStar hard fork.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Lauren, about how you fight for privacy, and everyone else for the brief intros. So we're going straight to some questions. And the first question I have is related to AI, because that's the hottest thing happening. And there's also another hot thing happening in crypto is like hacks. There have been a lot of hacks, especially, I think particularly like in April, we had like 26 hacks or something like that. And so the question is, how do you see AI contributing to the hacks on like the personal level, team level, and just in general security? And yeah, that's the question. I'm sorry, I was getting ahead of myself. But yeah, the question is basically, there've been a lot of hacks. How do you see AI contributing to these hacks?
I mean, I think, like I said, I feel like in the past couple of months, we've seen sort of like another order of magnitude of like hacks compared to sort of the past year or the years before, which I can only attribute to the rise of AI and like sort of the improvements of the models and models like the Mythos/Fable models from Anthropic as well. I think what's interesting though about these hacks from the past couple of months is that it's a lot of smaller hacks compared to maybe previously you would get some lower number but maybe bigger hacks. And I think it kind of makes sense that like the rise of AI makes the cost to try to find exploits so much lower that it doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't need to be this sort of big honeypot or like this big contract with millions of dollars for you to try to break it. But even sort of smaller projects that maybe people haven't heard of or that are just somewhere are now viable to just try to see, hey, can we break this with AI? Like you don't even have to spend any time, any real resources, like in terms of people doing anything. So I think that's one of the bigger changes that I've seen. It just seems like it's so much cheaper to hack.
Is that siren going off because there was another hack reported?
Presumably.
Yeah, Lauren, can you go next?
I just have to say, thank goodness that the US government restricted access to Fable. And thank goodness for Anthropic, restricting what we can and cannot use Fable. Okay, I can't even say that with a straight face. No, I mean, look, right now, I think we're seeing a lot of exploits because the technology is primarily being used by hackers and other adversaries. There are a lot of people in crypto who have been begging for access to Mythos, or who have sought to use Fable in order to do security work and have been prevented from doing so because of those, kind of arbitrary and misguided guardrails. And I think that ultimately, if we fast forward a few months, we're going to see these types of AI-driven or AI-empowered hacks kind of taper off, because at least hopefully, as crypto developers have more and more access to the later models, and these types of arbitrary safeguards are recognized for being counterproductive, that the playing field will be a bit more level, and crypto developers will really be able to use these tools to protect their protocols and their users.
Lefteris, do you have something more to share? Something to share on this?
For what exactly? Like about AI and hacks?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I guess everybody else stated the obvious. I don't think that there is anything else to add. Yeah, of course, like everything is getting hacked, probably because we have a lot of AI auditors, but also there is a lot of consolidation on the field, and there is a lot of abandoned projects. As Rosco said, we are seeing a lot more projects, but smaller, getting hacked. Probably that's because of the stickiness of funds in crypto. People just leave them in a vault of, I don't know, Balancer V1 or Curve V1 or Yearn V1 or something, and then what that means is in the end they get hacked, because right now it's really just a prompt. Hey, can you check if any of the protocols launched in 2017 or 2018? I don't even need to give a list. It will go and find them if they have any vulnerability. For academic purposes, of course, right? Like so that Fable doesn't ban us or anything. But yeah, I guess the answer is pretty obvious. I don't have anything else to add.
And Pavel, anything else to add?
No, I think it's been covered. Yeah.
Sweet. I think
Okay, go on.
yeah. I think we covered like the security side of things. I'm curious about the privacy side of things. What do you see as the potential dangers there? Pavel, if you want to touch on that.
So ultimately, I think what we're seeing is just a supercharging of business practices that we've seen for the last years. It's really those extractive principles that that are now just happening at a much faster speed and at a greater convenience than ever before. And so one of the things that we're obviously very concerned with is how can you put a significant dent into this business model that only incentivizes basically leaving systems open, making your data as accessible as possible, because it is a system that is built on profitability of your data and your behavioral information. So I'm always thinking about what can software designs look like? How can you build similar to Tor with privacy as the default design standard rather as a feature, right? So and yeah, from that point, we're always looking at just core principles, trying to mitigate the data that you put in. So I think, like, for instance, what Rotki is doing, and like that idea of building your own infrastructure or having your own data be separate from public access. Those things are also like core to the philosophy I think that we have around it.
Got it. So let me understand. Let me see if I understood what you mean. That with AI now, it's a lot easier to build with privacy first as a principle, right, Pavel? Is that what you were trying to say?
Oh no, I thought we were still talking about like ultimately the risks of privacy from AI.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so basically any kind of mitigative steps, whether I would almost separate this from AI, but basically anything that you build cannot be built on an extractive business model.
Got it. I see. Yeah, right. Because AI makes it a lot easier to dig up all the data. Right. Lauren, please.
I think a lot of businesses are already well aware of the data risks and the privacy risks which AI introduces. And I think local first AI and privacy preserving AI is a hot topic with businesses. And it is with some power users, but most people are not thinking about that, unfortunately. I think only 3 to 4% of Americans actually pay for AI, meaning the other are not using AI or still on kind of the free tier. But I think, hopefully as we, recognize more and more the power that we're giving to the AI model companies and how they can use that data potentially to manipulate us and our behavior and our beliefs. Hopefully more and more individuals will follow businesses and take a local first approach or a privacy preserving approach to AI.
Thank you, Lauren. And I know, Lefteris, you're also an advocate of locally run AIs and stuff like that. Maybe if you can also expand a little bit on what are the risks that are being solved when you run AI locally? Like what are why is it so important that people run it locally?
So, I mean, let's just define the problem, right? The problem is just opening Claude and just writing your life story or sharing very sensitive data. You're essentially giving them. So, like rotki is made to so that you don't share information with others, right? So that you keep all of your the sensitive financial data in your local system. Well, imagine that you just scrap all that and you have a chatbot and you are sharing PDFs of all of your contracts, of your employment contract that you want advice on, and you probably should get advice on, and you can't afford a lawyer, and you just want to, just give it to Claude. Claude will do, NLP on it. It will just get all of the info about you and your employer and the um, uh, how much is your salary, how much your employer is giving for a position like you. This is very, very useful data. There are like data brokers who would pay for this. So it's extremely dangerous to share all this information about yourself because first they can just take advantage of you, sell it, but secondly and more importantly, they could basically attack you by using your own information. So the solution, or one of the solutions, would be to run a local AI. But of course, local AI is for like 1.5 years now. It's always 3 months or 6 months before the frontier models. That's what I hear every time. I've tried a lot, and unfortunately, the results are really not there. Ideally, I would love to be able to do that, and like replace all of my AI usage with a local model. But the danger of not danger, like the problem of this is that uh, the open source models, they are just not there yet. And even if you were to try the most expensive ones and you want to run them locally, you would need a beast of a machine. We are talking about 20,000 plus, and maybe even more. And if you do the math, it does make zero financial sense. Like it's insane. You should really not do that. Of course, this is now. These things will probably change. We hope that they will change, and they should change because we really should not give our data to others. There is other solutions to this, though. There are companies, even, or like this is even a startup idea that I've heard and I'm pretty sure that someone is trying to do an in-between service, basically between you and your frontier model that translates your data into something that like is obfuscated for the frontier model and then translates it back. This is a great thing. I haven't seen it work, but as an idea, it's good, but it's probably also quite error prone. Like it just needs one wrong parameter, and then you just start leaking data, and you don't know actually what you leaked. So yeah, these are my current thoughts about this. It's something that's completely evolving all the time. I'm really into it. I love it. I'm experimenting with AI, both local and frontier, and combinations of different models. Like local models for something like NLP is easy, but for something more, agentic coding that you want to do a refactor of your entire code base and rewrite it in Rust, let's say, then probably you want something heavier, let's say Fable Plus. But these things are evolving. So yeah, I'm quite hopeful about where we end up. That's
Yeah, no. Thank you, Lefteris. Lauren, I saw you. Maybe did you want to add a comment there? I saw you waving your hand, like saying the future is soon.
Yeah, just agreeing with a bunch of stuff that Lefteris was saying, and I think the situation does feel unsatisfactory. It feels daunting at the moment. But if you look at kind of the trajectory, the capability of the models are increasing exponentially. And in the very near future, the open source models will be good enough. They may not be as good as the best models are, but for most people, for most things, you don't need a PhD level intelligence. And so, for 99% of tasks, if you can use a good enough privacy-preserving local AI, that will be a huge win for privacy.
Thank you, Lauren. And we have Carlos Melgar saying banger panel. So thank you so far, guys. People are enjoying it. And for everyone watching, feel free to leave comments, questions as well for our guests here. We're happy to bring them up. If you have concerns or questions about this topic, I think it's super hot and important. Rosco, let's go over to you. I think in your case, it's maybe, I mean, your product is more focused maybe on the security side of things, but do you have any concerns about how AI maybe could use even like the product you built to violate privacy, for example, or yeah, I don't know, maybe there are some other things that you've had in mind about AI and privacy dangers that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think the expert panel, the privacy expert panel has done a great job already at covering most things. Yeah, I think in terms of privacy, I think I do agree with Lauren about open source models being good enough for most tasks at some point in the probably not too far future. I think one thing that might still be interesting about that, though, is that you also kind of still want those open source or like local models to know their own limits, because that's also like something that with AI you kind of run into that. They always want to do something, but I think if we're saying we're kind of like have this local model that can do a lot of things, then you still wanted to say like, hey, whatever you want to do now, I can't help you, so that you can make the decision to either like give up the privacy, go to like a cloud model, or just say, okay, well, maybe let me do something else. I think that's all I have to add there. Yeah, great conversation so far though about the privacy aspect.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really loving the way the conversation has gone so far. I'm thinking with like the new things we're seeing with AI, and also just in general, when you build things, you typically go with like an assumption on like this, like the needs that people have, and this is the ways that people should use it. And then when you have like users, they come up with like interesting ways to like use them, or they have problems that you did not expect, or like innovative like ways that they use your product. So I'm curious if there are some of the ways that some of the like problems that you've seen people solve with like your tools, like with Rotki, if you have like examples of that. So I will start with Lefteris. Are there some interesting ways you see like your users use your tool to solve their problems? Are there new problems, or are there new problems that have come up with like AI that Rotki is like a like helpful solution to?
All right. Thanks a lot. So basically, the question, if I understand correctly, is um, what are some new fun ways that people use Rotki, and it's one's product?
Yes.
And maybe related to AI, like if there are any new things that AI brought that Rotki is solving in a way.
For AI. Oh wow. Well, I wouldn't say so. I mean, you can use AI with Rotki. That's one thing, but like Rotki solving the problems of privacy in AI, I wouldn't say so. Maybe, kind of trying to teach people that that there is still the concept of local applications, and there is still this local system that you're running, and you can actually save data there, and you don't need to push everything to the cloud. That's probably something that we have always been trying to get people used to. But as far as AI is concerned, I'm mostly actually fighting people with AI with Rotki, because you know how it is. You probably saw the stock market crash when they said that software as a service is dead. Everybody will just ask ChatGPT or the LLMs, and they will do whatever the software as a service was doing. And of course, accounting is one of those. There has been people who said that yeah, sure, like I can just do my taxes or my crypto understanding of everything. I'll just paste my addresses to Claude, and it will just give me all the results like per year, and all included in my $20 subscription. It will be perfect, because I told Claude make no mistakes, and of course it will make no mistakes. uh, we have fortunately seen that. I just last week made a presentation exactly just about that, basically about LLMs and hallucination and black box PNL, where I compared Rotki's tax accounting for like a few transactions versus Claude Opus 4.8, I think, and it was a disaster, because basically Claude just um, hallucinates stuff, because it just is pattern matching to what it understands is like a particular curve transaction or a particular balancer transaction. And what's worse about LLMs, which you do not want in accounting, is that they are non-deterministic. If you give a different result to your tax accountant every time you run the tool, you are going to jail, at least in Germany. And this is like something really serious that we are trying to face, because there are people, especially younger people, that are saying, no, I'm not going to use your tool because Claude tells me that I don't need to pay much, and it gives me a smaller number because I'm also pressing. When you're using an LLM, you're discussing with it, right? And as a taxpayer or as an accounting guy, you probably wanted the lower number, so you kind of push your LLM to give you that number. And and anything that does not give you that number is wrong. Like our personal like our challenge at Rotki is basically dealing with this kind of users and trying to not be um, dismissive, because I totally get the problem. You always want the lower number as a taxpayer, like as someone who is being asked to actually, like pay something to the government. Who wants to do that? Um, but also to explain that you cannot trust LLM for stuff that really need to be deterministic. For accounting, is just not the tool. So like if anything we have seen from our experience is this, and this is very very difficult. I have no solution for this. I have had many weekends that I had very difficult conversations with users.
I understand like exactly what you're talking about, and like sometimes even though it seems so obvious, there are reasons that people don't really see why like they should spend more for like the private or more secure or local solution, especially I don't want to go into like AI psychosis or things like that, but especially when they're seeing like some data that's telling them it's the same thing or it's like a cheaper alternative or it doesn't really matter. To ask to the rest of the panel, do you guys have similar experiences with this? Either like what Lefteris said, where it's like you're trying to convince users to on the importance of your tool, even though like AI is telling them something different, and like or the other way around where it's like there are more hacks or there are more like vulnerabilities, so then they think your tool is more important now because so like the relationship between AI and the way people are using it and adoption or resistance to your tool. So I see Pavel nodding. I would like to ask if you have something to.
Yeah, it's really what we've heard all along, right? So there's basically this huge idea that data is even increasingly more valuable because these tools and these LLMs will only work and will work better if you feed more into it. And then at the same time, we have this idea of giant corporations arguing, hey, go with the generalized tool because we're so huge, we're so big, we can offer this quote unquote for free just in exchange for your data. And so this is where we really have to, for all the hype, kind of understand that AI isn't fundamentally new in that it presents the same challenges. Like if you want privacy, you might need to opt for more specialized tools or for people who care about your data. And unfortunately, some of the responsibility lies with you. As much as I always hate to make it about personal responsibility, but we're kind of at an early moment where a lot of experimentation happens in the market. And traditionally, when experimentation happens, there isn't a lot of oversight or regulation because everybody is excited about it. And so, yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot of people now flocking to Tor just to reduce kind of at the top what they're feeding into these models, right? So Tor is just like this one layer that you can think of that helps with your privacy because it allows you to basically reduce all the traces, all the data that you're leaving for others to then monetize on later on. And that is a very powerful first step that you can take, but it's just one in the toolkit of many. So obviously people are also increasingly using Signal and they're increasingly using other tools. So we're definitely seeing that with this AI and like a bigger understanding around the extractive practices of big tech has manifested, and people are looking to protect themselves with tools that are designed to make this a little bit easier. Now, then we obviously have also the extreme use cases, and I think this is also very overlooked in these discussions. So for instance, journalists, especially like, let's say, exile journalists, like who really have a big and huge surveillance threat. And with more and more newsrooms like across the globe, not just devaluing journalism, but also, laying off reporters. So in favor of using AI tools, we're also seeing really problematic practices around around like how we can even conduct journalism in ethical ways, how we can protect reporters. And so So there are a lot of unanswered questions, and for the time being, unfortunately, it is our own responsibility. And so therefore, opting for as many privacy tools, opting for as many specialized services, so that you can combat this giant narrative that tools are easier to use when they're less secure. No, like, secure tools are extremely easy to use.
I don't think I can add anything to that because I agree 100%. Rosco, any thing you can share about like the relationship between your tools and the rise of AI and the back and forth on both sides?
Yeah. So I think one thing that's maybe interesting in that regard is that, you know, at Revoke, we also deal a lot. So we have our tools, but we also deal a lot with just people coming to us for support, for like understanding what happened. Like they got scammed or they lost their money somehow, and they don't understand what's going on. And I feel like AI has mostly been a help there, but not that like we aren't using AI sort of on our side for, I don't know, like support and those kind of things. But I do feel like users are using AI a lot more for like that first line support. Like, hey, something happened, I don't know what happened. I think that definitely compared to like a year ago, way more people are just first talking to ChatGPT or to Claude or whatever AI they're using to figure out whether they might have signed something, they might have been like, it might have been a seed phrase compromise or whatever you have. And we also see that's now sometimes when people come to our support, they already like have this sort of information about like, hey, you know, I chatted with AI and this is what they said, and this is what, you know, what AI's theory is about what happened. And a lot of times it's still it leaves a bit to be desired. Like it's still not great, especially I think because it's just not a really that much of like a specialized tool for these kind of things. It's not like just normal ChatGPT and normal Claude, like not their like Claude Code or whatever, like aren't amazing at analyzing blockchain transactions or those kind of things. So it still relies also a lot on what the user kind of feeds them. But so I guess to bring it back, it definitely does feel like a lot more users are kind of using that for their support kind of questions, which includes like security kind of things on crypto now. And I guess as AI improves, that will be a much more positive sort of aspect, I feel like.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because you deal with like the end user a lot and providing a support so you can see the wide range of just the different ways people are using and it's impacting and how your tool fits in with everything there. So thank you so much, Rosco. For Loring, same question, but a little bit more. Okay, do you have something to say like off the top of your head or?
So not about AI and Shutter or encrypted mempools, but I did have a delightful experience using AI when assigning my votes for Octant Epoch 12. And many of you, if you've been to octant.app, you have noticed something new. It is a feature called the Round Assistant, and you can ask it anything about this round. And I'm just going to ask it right now. Okay, which are the best privacy and security projects for this round? And bleep, bloop, bloop. Okay, here are the strongest privacy and security picks across the round. Seal 911, Zach XBT, Revoke.cash, Shutter Network, and the Tor Project. And I just have to point out that this is an example of AI failing. It got 90% right, but excluding rotki was obviously an error. But maybe to Lefteris' earlier point, I'm sure because it is non-deterministic, if we ran it again with the same question, rotki would be included. But nonetheless, as you are doing your allocation for Octant Epoch 12, do play around with the round assistant. It's pretty cool. I can see Lefteris' face. He's doing the same query right now.
I mean, but here we are again at the topic of like AI does not absolve you from personal responsibility. It does not absolve you from having discernment. I mean, ultimately, when it comes to these projects, it's also important, like, what are the values that you care about, and are these organizations aligned? And I mean, I think we've heard some incredible use cases today from folks. So this is why conversations like these are still important, because there's just things that that AI cannot cover, and not everybody has the resources to also game the LLMs the same way in order to make themselves visible there, right?
Yeah, that's become so fascinating to me as well. Like, how are people? I mean, I think people are already starting to optimize like SEO and like everything they write online, so that it's easier to be found by AIs and stuff. It's kind of mind blowing. Like I don't know how a world like that will look like. I just hope, but unfortunately, maybe it's gonna look like that everything looks so dry and like sort of the way AI likes it, which is very non-human in a way. But yeah, we're yet to see that. On the question Paloma was asking earlier, actually, Lauren, I was thinking about, I don't know, has let's say malicious MEV become easier as well with AI, for example, or like any other kind of things that encrypting the mempool could mitigate also as well. I was seeing that Jared from Subway got hacked as well the other day, probably also thanks to AI. Like related to that, maybe if you want to comment on it, but I was curious about what your take is.
Yeah, maybe a couple of points here, and we'll go roughly in the same order that you did. Even though some people have been using private mempools to protect themselves against toxic MEV, and just a quick aside, private in this context does not mean privacy. Private in this context means exclusive, kind of like a country club. So it means that you're sharing your transaction information with an exclusive number of people who just promise not to extract toxic MEV or engage in real-time censorship. And we've seen, based on the record, that sometimes they do extract toxic MEV or engage in real-time censorship, despite those guarantees and despite even financial penalties being imposed. But Data Always from Flashbots recently released some wonderful analysis showing that toxic MEV is not being eliminated by private mempools. Data Always shows that wide sandwich attacks are actually becoming more and more common. In addition to that, there was also a really interesting piece published last week by Gottfried Harold, who argued in an ETH research post that even with an encrypted mempool, if you are not using an unlinked address, essentially if you're not combining privacy pools and encrypted mempool together, then you kind of open the possibility to engage in probabilistic toxic MEV. And Gottfried actually argued that unlinked addresses and the encrypted public mempool can work together as kind of different privacy layers at different places in the technology stack in order to provide more comprehensive protection against toxic MEV and real-time censorship. And then maybe just the last point about Jared from subway.eth getting hacked. I mean, I know a lot of people on Twitter, were dunking on them. I personally don't favor this type of vigilante justice. There is, no matter how much I personally disagree with it in my own personal ethics, I have met people at Ethereum conferences who have said, I engage in toxic MEV because the system permits it, and it is kind of economically rational for me to do so. And so I would much rather encrypt the public mempool so that that value is never extracted, or the majority of times not extracted from end users. That seems like a much more preferable state of affairs than Jared stealing it from end users and then someone else stealing it from Jared. Hopefully, the hacker, whoever it is contributing it to the Octant Epoch 12 rewards pool, or using it to fund Protocol Guild or some other public goods funding. But I don't think that's the case, unfortunately.
Fair enough. On the Jared from Subway topic, we have a say in Spanish that is ladrón que roba ladrón, 100 años de perdón, which means thief who steals a thief gets 100 years forgiveness. So I thought it was on the point. Paloma, I think you wanted to ask another question.
Yes, so we've been talking about like privacy and security and the different how do I phrase this? People usually like care about privacy or security by the time it's too late. So what are some of the ways you think we can increase awareness, safe practices, adoption, especially since this is probably something you guys think about since you are building privacy and security tools, you're fighting for privacy like Loring said. So what are just some of the ways that you are increasing the awareness and adoption, and what are some of the things that you think everyone else can and should do?
So ultimately, I think so. We've said this in the past. It's been one of our taglines, like privacy loves company. So I think it is everything really that is related in the small habits. Anything that you can do to minimize the amount of data that you generate and the data that you share publicly also helps others, especially like in very vulnerable situations. Like one thing that I always say is don't use a privacy tool until you actually need it, because then it's very easy for anybody who is observing you, your network, to then potentially discern that you're doing something sensitive. So really make privacy the default. And that really can be a variety of toolkits. Some things that we are very proud of over the last few years is our ability to prioritize more of the mobile experience. So with Tor, like we just recently announced Tor VPN beta, and that has been really a response to the fact that now almost new users are almost 8 times more likely to want to use Tor on mobile. And of our users, like the usage patterns are really split 50-50. So people are using Tor browser for desktop and Tor browser for mobile. So that just means, the mobile experience has also reached Tor. And with the VPN, what we're doing is we're not just tunneling your traffic all through just one circuit, but every app that you choose to route through the Tor network gets its own circuit. So you're really disaggregating everything that you're doing on this phone from one thing or another. So it is really difficult to cross-track your activity. And that is, of course, the design philosophy that Tor has always had. Like, don't make the attack surface such that it is easy to find one vulnerable vector and then exploit it, but really just scatter all your information so that it is really hard to trace it back to you. And I think there's more coming down the pipeline. So we obviously are now merged with Tails for 2 years now. And so we're looking at default integrations of Signal on Tails OS. That is a project that we're just started and really excited about. And it really goes to the philosophy of the more privacy tools that you use, and especially like today, I mean, we're surrounded by many people who are looking at privacy. It's all about opting when you can for the more secure tool. And the return on investment, unfortunately, is never really there to talk in, practice and in terms of, economic terms, because what is the value of an attack that wasn't carried out, of a hack that didn't happen, of an exploit that didn't take place, right? It is so hard to argue the negative, to argue what didn't happen, but there is value in it. And so I think it just starts with a habit and choosing the safer alternative first, and then seeing the long-term effects play out.
We need to take a page from the insurance industry and make privacy something which, responsible, upstanding citizens do, because, it's all about risk mitigation.
I think from my side as well, with Revoke, there's this sort of interesting dynamic where the more hacks happen, the more publicity Revoke gets, or the more people go to Revoke. But as Paloma said before, the idea is that we want to get people to use security tools before they need it. So I think maybe a bit counterintuitively, the current rise in smaller hacks might be all right in that regard. If we have a big stream of small hacks going on, that means that people kind of are continuously reminded that hacks are real, hacks happen. You should, take active, proactive measures to stay safe, which is a lot better, I think, than a huge hack happening every now and then that affects so many people, and then sort of people forget about it again some months later until something big happens again. So I think counterintuitively that might actually not be terrible in getting people to care about security. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the same question, I think that the big issue here is, I get what everybody else is saying, but I kind of disagree, because I've tried this approach for like the entire life of Rotki's existence, and I don't think it works, because like so for example, what I was going for was, whenever there was a leak of data from any tool, not even accounting, any website, anything, I was saying, yeah, you know what, and look at here, like so many people's data is out, and for some period, even now, it's happening almost once or twice per month. This doesn't work. I don't think that the scaring them by showing them bad things happening will work. I had a lot of talks about this with other people in the privacy sector, and I think that the biggest issue is that we tend to focus on privacy as a feature, which it doesn't sell to the common person. They just won't care until they are hit, and by the time that they are hit, probably it's way too late. And you really don't want to have a bad thing be your the thing that is your distribution model. I would suppose that you would want to market privacy as something positive, like go with the carrot, not with the stick. And as I had said in a nice talk that I gave at some point for this, is like to not make privacy homework, because nobody wants to do homework. They just, it sounds boring. But include it along with everything else, that whatever it is that your tool is doing. Let's say for Rotki, for example, that you want to not have the privacy as the main thing, but as just a good side effect, that is why your tool is the best to use on this. But it should not, they should not suffer for this privacy. It should not be at least as good UX wise, at least as good as in the UI, at least as good in speed. I know as someone building something like this, it's really hard, because you have a lot of handicaps against you whenever you are building for privacy. But this is a challenge that unfortunately we have to do in this field. And zooming out from Rotki alone, but for anything privacy related, I would say that we must not be absolutists, because this is something that I have seen, and I really fear that we are losing people with, if we are being totally absolute, like saying, privacy is either complete, like you use I don't know, Graphene OS and everything behind Tor, everything VPN, and like even one small win with my mom, I don't know, like making her just use Signal instead of WhatsApp or something. Like even this is a huge win for privacy. We shouldn't just push everybody to be either the extreme, or like they are not as good as us.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick up where Lefteris left off. In a Cypherpunk's manifesto, Eric Hughes says, privacy is the power to selectively reveal oneself to the world. And privacy is power is a really interesting concept, and one we often don't give enough credit. And sometimes we are absolutists, as Lefteris said, and sometimes we're actually presumptuous that people don't care about privacy because they choose to exercise their power in different ways than we would choose to do so. And I mean, granted, the tables are not level. If you are signing up for an application which promises to do some cool little thing, and there's 100 pages of terms and conditions, and somewhere buried in there, it says that it turns on all of these sensors in your smartphone. Right? Do you really have power? Are you really consenting at that point? I think many reasonable people would say no. But I think having the power to decide is kind of key to my idea of privacy. And because I'm here representing Shutter, I feel obligated to point out that, like, adoption, getting people to choose privacy in the Ethereum transaction supply chain is not even where we are on the roadmap yet. Because right now, Ethereum users are forced to either reveal their transaction information in the public mempool, or they're forced to share it with these exclusive private mempools in order to gain some level of protection, but it comes at a cost. And so what we're doing by working to encrypt the public mempool is merely to give Ethereum users the choice, so that Ethereum users can choose, do they want to send an unencrypted transaction into the public mempool? And in some cases, like a straight ETH transfer, that might be perfectly acceptable. Or they can choose to use a private mempool, or they can use the public mempool with an encrypted transaction, which is just as performant when it comes to optimizing the execution of your transaction, hopefully as the private mempool is. So right now, the struggle for us is merely to enable the protocol upgrade to give users the choice. Once they have the choice, then we can focus on adoption.
Sweet. Thank you, Lauren. What a way. I mean, we've crossed the 1 hour mark. So what a way to end these contributions and super insightful takes on, in general, privacy and security. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you coming on here and sharing all that with us. I happy to share that we've broken a record for this epoch amount of viewers in the live stream. So actually, I think the Twitter going down was maybe beneficial for us, but I think it was mostly the topic and the guests here that were amazing. We've crossed 550 viewers, so that's maybe 2 or 3 times as much as the previous one. So great job, guys. And yeah, I just wanted to give you guys the opportunity to maybe give some final words, invite folks who are watching us to vote for your projects and tell us why they should vote for your projects. What are you going to do with the funds that you receive? For anyone watching, go to Octant.app and vote for these awesome projects. So let's start with you, Rosco.
Yeah. Thanks so much for organizing this. I think people should be empowered to have the tools to stay safe in crypto. That's what Revoke is trying to do. And to do that, we do need your support. We're working on some really cool upcoming premium features as well to kind of reduce our reliance on grants, because it's important, I think, that all projects kind of have some pathway to profitability. So I hope to reveal more about that soon, but there's going to be some pretty cool new smart account based functionality that's hopefully going to be a killer UX improvement for revoking.
Sweet. Thank you, Rosco. Yeah, Revoke.cash. Go to Octant.app, Epoch 12, vote for them. Pavel, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about like how privacy is not a very profitable business model. So any kind of donations in the privacy space are always greatly appreciated for any project. In our case specifically, this is one of the models that shows that privacy by design is possible, and we're really proud that we're now working on more mobile solutions. We've actually also rewritten our 20-year-old code base into a more modern language. And so that is first time on display in the Tor VPN beta, which I encourage also everybody to just go to the Play Store and download and give it a spin. But yeah, if you're really concerned with helping Tor offer the same privacy protections that people are used to on desktop, yeah, support us, because unrestricted funds is really what allows us to experiment with new and other platforms than the legacy ones.
Sweet. Thank you, Pavel. As well, Tor Project, participant in Epoch 12. Go and vote for them. Rotki, Lefteris.
Hey, yeah, so really appreciate that you guys have us on this round. So Rotki relies a lot on rounds like this, so we would really appreciate any support from all the viewers. What we are working on, everything would go for salaries, because we are now a much smaller team, unfortunately, than before, but still we need to to be able to sustain our operations. For next things that we are working on, there is a lot. The two bigger ones is that we are reworking the accounting after the accounting engine after a lot of requests from a lot of our users that want it to be a bit more powerful, and I also really wanted to do this change for a long time. So any problems that you ever had with Rotki's accounting engine, you will probably be very happy to hear that this is our top priority. And secondly, for the AI stuff that we were talking about, so Rotki is a private like repository, like a data lake of all of your history of crypto exchanges, all the chains, etc. And this is the power of it. Like it's this data that you have locally. No UI will ever do this justice. No UI will ever be good enough to explore this. So we are working on an MCP server, a local one that you can interrogate your Rotki data either through a local LLM, or if you're feeling lucky, you can even use a frontier model and talk to your Rotki data, but that would mean basically all the privacy stuff that we discussed so far. But this, we believe, is something that has been long overdue and will basically allow you to just do whatever you want with your Rotki data. So yeah, please, to help us do this, go and vote for us at some point in this round.
Sweet. Thank you, Lefteris. There you go. Vote for Rotki at Octant App. And last but not least, Lauren with Shutter.
Okay, I'm going to ask you all, our listeners, 3 questions. And as I ask them, I want you to answer them in your head. Feel free to answer them out loud as well. Okay, first question. Do I want to end toxic MEV? Second question. Do I want to end real-time censorship? And third, do I want to do so in a credibly neutral and decentralized manner? And if the answer to all 3 of those questions was yes, 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 then I encourage you, please contribute to Shutter in Octant Epoch 12, and also join as a member of the Encrypt the Mempool coalition. You can do so as an organization, and I hope to see Revoke.cash, Rotki, and the Tor Project. I hope to see your names and logos on the Encrypt the Mempool coalition website soon. But if you're an individual, please reach out and talk to your wallets, your DEXs, any core protocol developers that you know, any block builders that you know. Please reach out to them and encourage them to support the campaign to encrypt the public mempool. Thank you.
You've heard the man. Vote for Shutter and help encrypt the mempool. And thank you guys for this amazing chat again. And yeah, please, for the audience, go vote for them at Octant App. Thank you for listening as well. And I, of course, would want to give Paloma the chance to say goodbye as well and say some final words. Thank you for being a great co-host, Paloma.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't have asked for a better co-host and a better panel, because this was a really interesting and engaging conversation. Thank you to everyone, and to everyone that listened, thank you. And please check it out and vote. And in addition to voting, like, be actively pushing for privacy in all the ways that the panel has mentioned. Like, they're giving us like a million ways to support and to increase adoption and to do all the things. So thank you to everyone.
Yes, thank you. And I know we've run way over time, so thank you all for sticking around. I think this was such an interesting conversation that it was totally worth it. So yeah, appreciate you all. See you tomorrow in another live stream at the same time with some more of our Epoch 12 grantees. And yeah, see you tomorrow. Thank you all, guys, again, and thank you to our audience.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
guys.
one.
Bye-bye.
Awesome live stream. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.